If there's anything that makes me happy as someone who played Pokemon my whole life, it's seeing Palworld's dog walk Nintendo's flagship franchise into the mud the way that it's been doing recently. Nothing brings me joy like this for a simple reason, because as a Pokemon fan, I can confidently say that Pokemon's quality-wise is in the gutter and Nintendo is to blame for all of it. Palworld's 1.0 release has come, it's doing huge numbers, but it should also be a wake-up call for Nintendo to get their side ducks in order. Instead, Nintendo might not be learning anything at all, but the bigger question is, are fans also walking away? Well, before any of that, there's also been another big update for Nintendo's Palworld lawsuit, which is nothing but good news all around. Really, this whole video is nothing but good news actually, as Game Rant reported here. Nintendo's monster capturing patent, which was one of their last Hail Mary attempts at stopping Palworld, has also been officially destroyed. Not only has their last bastion of hope to sue Palworld failed, it was, and I'm not even kidding, rejected by none other than the Japanese Patent Office themselves. Which is nuts because it was considered that Japan was the only place that Nintendo would get any legal traction due to their presence in the country being, so dominant the way that it is. But it didn't work. They failed in every single way. They just failed, man. The wild part is that Nintendo's greed, it knew no bounds when it came to destroying Palworld. Because earlier this year, after realizing where that lawsuit was going to go, Nintendo decided to pivot their approach. Instead, Nintendo tried to, as Game Rant shows here, go after Palworld's mobile version now for what, you may be asking. Well, Nintendo tried to file a lawsuit against Palworld Mobile, claiming that they now own the rights to, and I'm not even kidding, touchscreen functionality and how it's being used to implement both monster capturing and riding on creatures as reasons for the lawsuit. So they actually took a different approach, trying to file the same lawsuits they already failed at, but with another version of Palworld, so they could get their licks in somehow. But yeah, it didn't work. Nintendo tried to file a patent, which is called Patent 2026-019762 as seen here, to act as if they could push this to ruin Palworld Mobile now, and by proxy also Roko Kingdom World, another game that Tencent is working on. By the way, Palworld Mobile, that's done in partnership with Tencent as well, so a double whammy was the idea here, I guess. So what ended up happening was Nintendo took this patent 019762 and they retrofitted it to fit another patent. Yeah, I know, you can apparently do that somehow, and they tried to compile touchscreen movement, capture items, summoning battle creatures, command selection, and catching field characters both in and out of combat as patents that Nintendo owns somehow. But what's really wild is that what ended up ruining Nintendo's patents for them wasn't even Palworld. It was actually a fan project called Pokemon Generations as seen here. I can't actually show the gameplay of this fan game because Nintendo will who are we kidding? Probably copyright strike me if I do. But basically this Generations game is like a fully 3D version of old school Pokemon games before Nintendo did it pretty much. Anyways, the Japanese Patent Office then said as seen here where I highlighted that Nintendo's claims lacked an inventive step, because all they did was combine things they already tried before and failed at, but thought that they could get away with it a second time, and they could not. But because that Pokemon Generations fan project existed and that game was published 8 whole years before Nintendo filed these patents that they supposedly invented, which they couldn't have since the fan game already had these so-called patent ideas implemented in their game, which obviously means Nintendo couldn't have invented such ideas that already existed, basically, okay? This means that this Pokemon Generations fan game, in a way, inadvertently costed Nintendo one of its only avenues for legal victory by just simply existing. If I was Pocket Pair, I would actually send whoever made that Pokemon Generations game like a care package of Palworld goods as a big thank you. As seen here though, that game confirmed that Nintendo did not in fact own anything unique or original due to the existence of that game. I just know Nintendo's lawyers right now are eating their paper and screaming in public, just knowing that they can't win this. But it wasn't the only thing that ruined Nintendo's one path to victory, as seen here. You had other mobile games that existed prior to Nintendo's patents that were also being used to ruin their claims even further. Stuff like Ark and PUBG Mobile also used elements from Nintendo's so-called patents that they owned, yet they were made prior to their filings too. Nintendo now officially has about 3 months to come up with something to destroy Palworld with next. But the likelihood is they're not going to have anything, because any patent they claim that they own has likely already existed to some capacity in something before they claim to have made it anyways. But as Game Rant put it here earlier this year, Nintendo either way is losing a lot of money money pursuing these fruitless lawsuits, because nothing that they try to pin on Palworld has obviously been working. All they've done is prove that Palworld did nothing wrong despite what others try to say, and that the mere existence of it is only seen as a threat because Palworld exposes what Nintendo has been doing for so long, and now we're all the better for it. The exact number currently that Nintendo has lost in their attempts to destroy Palworld are kind of baffling, really, as seen here. Nintendo has officially lost $41 million in legal fees pursuing Palworld the way that they have, and those losses attribute to the majority of Nintendo's losses during that period. Honestly, this is nothing but good news. Well, unless you work for Nintendo's legal team, because they might get fired for feeling so badly, but I mean, what did you guys expect, really? For all this just to happen the way that you wanted it to? Either way, this is incredible news, guys, and as this video continues, there's a lot of reasons why Nintendo would have wanted Palworld to fail. Because when you look further into how this game is doing right now, well, if I was Nintendo, I would be punching my desk, because Palworld, they're kind of coming for everything. As 80level.com said here, Palworld's massive release is seeing crazy numbers, with almost 800,000 more people showing up to experience what the game has on offer now. So the 1.0 release brings a new island to explore, new mutations, and 72 new pals to capture, which is a lot considering that's about half of what a normal Pokemon game brings per generation. Well, depending on the generation, I guess. The wilder part is that Pocket Pair confirmed, as PC Gamer said here, that Palworld will also not have a price increase following its 1.0 release. Instead, the game will retain its $30 American price tag, which is nuts considering the value that's on offer here. As Pocket Pair put it here officially, they didn't want to raise the price despite the added content, so all in all, you can now get Palworld for $30 American or $40 Canadian, which is absurd considering how much Nintendo charges for Pokemon related media in comparison. Pokemon games, as you probably know, used to be priced appropriately back in the DS days, right? I remember a new Pokemon game going for about $45 Canadian when I was in junior high. These days, a Pokemon game is as much as Call of Duty or any other game, which is wild to me considering the quality on offer from Pokemon is, well, frankly abysmal. I mean, a side-by-side comparison easily shows this. Here's Palworld versus Pokemon in terms of gameplay, and the results are, well, embarrassing the longer that you're looking at it. And the added fact, right, that the Pokemon game on screen there costs twice as much as Palworld does and then some is kind of ridiculous. Nintendo should be ashamed of themselves because there's no reason for why Pokemon needs to be as milquetoast as it is right now, especially considering how much of a vice grip they have on consumers worldwide due to how popular that IP is and still is, obviously, we all know this. Nintendo never updated Pokemon in any meaningful way because it would mean that they would have to try for once, which, well, they didn't want to, because people would show up no matter what for whatever Nintendo released for the masses, right? For me, the thing that broke everything, it was Sword and Shield. That game series there, Sword and Shield, irrevocably broke my beliefs in Pokemon as a brand. Those games showed me that Nintendo was willing to do next to nothing to expand their games in any way that actually really mattered. Like the fact that Sword and Shield came out on Switch as well, with the added power that system had over previous Nintendo systems, which we knew could power stronger games. Like Breath of the Wild, even stuff like Xenoblade was such an insult, man. I remember playing Sword and Shield when it first came out and just thinking to myself, wow, Nintendo really doesn't care about the quality of this franchise at all, man. Then, when they did Scarlet and Violet, I mean, they went open world, and despite the openness of those games, they were not, in my opinion, really good games either. The world felt mostly pointless, and the structure of that game felt honestly baffling to me to play. It's the one single Pokemon generation of games I have yet to see to the end, which, like, we need to understand, okay? I've played these games over and over again since I was a kid. The amount of times I beat Pokemon Red or Yellow, Silver, Crystal, Emerald, dude, even stuff like Platinum or Black and White, it's just stupid. I would reset my game, pick a new starter, and just keep playing for hours on end. I love those games, but I also felt like it wasn't reaching its potential even then. And seeing what Palworld was doing, it became clear that the only thing holding back Pokemon was Nintendo. Apparently, according to rumors, the new Pokemon games, Wind and Waves, will have MMO-like elements to it, but who knows, right? There's also rumors there's supposed to be like 300 new Pokemon in the next game, a vast majority of which is supposedly new forms to existing Pokemon, so not 300 new Pokemon, but you get the idea. It's going to look better on the box if they put that. Apparently, Wind and Waves is also going to have a similar design to Scarlet and Violet, in the same sense that there's going to be like 3 core storylines that you have to follow to complete the main story. I'm not saying the rumors are true or anything, but hey, look, the point is that Nintendo, they're kind of in a weird spot right now when it comes to the Pokemon games, at least. I mean, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a pretty powerful console for like what it is, right? It can run Tears of the Kingdom, Xenoblade Chronicles, Chronicles 1 through X, not to mention stuff like Donkey Kong Bonanza and more, right? You even have full ports of games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Cyberpunk 2077, and those are running natively on the Switch 2 right now. You just plug it in and play it. Like that is impressive. It's borderline black magic if you can see it running in person. I gotta say. So if the next Pokemon game is not a equally level of like a quantum leap forward for Nintendo's design philosophy, the backlash is gonna be nuclear, guys. Come on. There's really no excuse for the next Pokemon game to look like some mobile ripoff like Violet does when your freaking mainline console, like I said, can run Final Fantasy VII Rebirth of all things on it. Like, it just won't be acceptable. I said before, but the fact that Nintendo gives stuff like Zelda or Mario, right, all this love and attention in years to make these games, really massaging every release to make sure they're amazing, they're not buggy and all that, and then they just kind of open their cheeks and shard out a new Pokemon game pretty much every year is kind of baffling to me. They sort of treat Pokemon like it's Nintendo's version of like NBA 2K or Call of Duty or something, but somehow that's not even really a fair comparison because Nintendo's Pokemon games feel like they were made in a month instead of like years in quality. Look, I say all this because Nintendo needs to get their act together. I can't speak for anyone, but for me at least, my way of doing my video games planning was always pretty simple for me. I would always have like a PlayStation insert number here to play Sony exclusives and whatever third-party games I wanted to play. And then I would always have whatever Nintendo was doing handheld-wise at the time so I could play their games on the handheld. Pokemon was always the reason I actually got their handhelds though. I wouldn't even buy the new handheld until Nintendo would actually announce, hey, there's a new Pokemon game coming. Oh, it is? All right, time to buy the new console now, I guess. And that's what I did with the Switch, right? I got Breath of the Wild day one like everyone else did, but the real reason I got the Switch was obviously for Pokemon. Because, oh my god, it's a handheld hybrid system. Look at how good Zelda looks on the Switch. Just imagine how good Pokemon is going to look, and Sword and Shield looks awful. And the part that annoys me was how people just rewarded Nintendo because we had nothing else. And again, it was full price now instead of being like half the price of a new game like it used to be. That's why with Palworld doing what it's doing, the lawsuit, all of it is such a big deal, and it's achieving what it's doing too. Because Pokemon is doing, well, really everything but making great games these days. Yet they're asking us to pay premium prices for something that is anything but that. I mean, sure, Pokemon still has the whole, trading card craze. I mean, you can still find videos all over the internet of people opening those ancient retro card packs looking for a Charizard, without the shadow behind them or something else because they're like $100,000 or something. And funnily enough, though, Palworld is actually coming for that too. It's been confirmed by Pocket Pair as seen here that Palworld is also getting an official trading card game like Pokemon physically starting July 30th, 2026. As seen here, the official set is called Dawn of Palpagos and it's being developed by Bushy Road. The cards' rarities will go from common to super parallel. There's also super special parallel cards, which are like ultra rare variants of the already rare cards with exclusive artwork too. There's also going to be another Palworld booster pack set coming on October 30th, 2026 called The Legends Awaken. And the current slate of trading cards that, Dawn of Palpagos ones, well, Pocket Pair confirmed as seen here that they've already sold over 3.5 million packs in pre-orders alone. I even ordered the Palworld booster sets myself. I want to collect them the same way I do Yu-Gi-Oh! And Final Fantasy cards too. The problem with starting Pokemon cards now, I mean, we all know this, they're just way too expensive. But with Palworld now officially starting, it's very likely, yeah, they're probably going to blow up in price once the hype begins. So I'm just trying to get ahead of the curve myself, but like I said, Pocket Pair is now coming for the trading card game crowd, and hey, I don't blame them. Although, I don't think Palworld will take over Pokemon in terms of trading cards because, let's be real, Pokemon is crazy when it comes to the prices what people are willing to pay these days. We all are very aware of this, I'm sure, but I totally understand why Palworld is doing what they're doing because Nintendo is making so much money, dude, off of Pokemon. They legit could just swap their business model to just being a Pokemon console and selling Pokemon related stuff. They would still be living like kings. Like, did you guys know, as Kotaku reported here, that over 10 billion Pokemon cards were created in 2025 alone, and they all sold out? I wish I was kidding. In totality, Pokemon cards have been made by Nintendo to the crazy amount of 85 billion cards. That's since 1996 when the trading card game, all officially started. 85 billion, guys. It's like sets like the Scarlet and Violet Prismatic Evolutions expansion, like those are mega sellers. And to understand how big this market has become, in May 2021, the lifetime amount of cards that Nintendo had produced at that point was 34.1 billion cards. They doubled that and then some in just 5 years. Not even 5 years yet. 2026 isn't even over yet. As 6ABC, though, reported in May this year, and this is pretty funny, nearly $10,000 in Pokemon cards were actually stolen in Montgomery County. So this was the guy who did it on screen here. Apparently, he asked to see 2 individual Pokemon cards that were $2,500 each. He then asked to see a sealed booster set that was $4,200. And when the clerk turned around to do something, this guy apparently just grabbed everything and he ran out of the store to a car, which security cameras caught. And I mean, that's crazy, dude. We got people out here willing to do time behind bars because of Pokemon cards. This is what Nintendo's insane market share on everything is getting people to do. Apparently, that guy who stole the cards, he did manage to sell one of them to another pawn shop in the same city. So the police were able to get one of those cards back, but now the pawn shop that bought the card, not knowing obviously that it was stolen, are now out of thousands of dollars themselves for buying it. So yeah, that's wild, dude, but that is what I mean. Like, this is what Nintendo's Pokemon craze is doing. I mean, that's not even the craziest story either, though. Look at this. There was one guy who went on a Pokemon crime spree, and he used a chainsaw of all things to break into a store to steal their stock too. So this all happened in Florida because, well, of course it did. It's Florida, who are we kidding? But as it says here, surveillance footage showed someone cutting a triangle-shaped hole in a hurricane-proof window with a battery-powered chainsaw. The thief seemingly managed to injure himself in the process and left blood at the scene, and he also got his license plate recorded via the security camera. So the guy got caught, and he's apparently on like a bond of $20,000, but like, come on, man. Imagine being in jail and like one guy's like, so what are you in here for? And the guy's like, I shot a guy. Another dude's like, yeah, I sold stuff I shouldn't have. And then there's this other guy from Florida, and he's like, I used a chainsaw to cut into a Pokemon trading card shop, and I cut myself and got caught instantly. Like, oh my God, amazing what's happening. But for Palworld, like, this is all still good news, right? The people are insane like this because they're absolutely trying their hardest to just dethrone Pokemon in really any way they can. And because Pokemon isn't available, obviously, outside of Nintendo platforms, that's going to create reverse lack of competition for Palworld to then secure a stronger foothold in the future. On Steam, for example, currently, as this video being made anyways, as seen there, Palworld is actually the most played game on Steam concurrently at its time of release. As the community manager for Palworld confirmed here, it is now beaten Counter-Strike 2 even, which is nuts considering how much that game is played even till this day because people are, opening up things for the knives that they can sell for lots of money. Dude, the whole Counter-Strike thing, like, look it up, it's crazy. But again, Palworld has succeeded and reaped the rewards here because Nintendo has allowed a pocket, no pun intended, of competition to grow due to their lack of care or need to believe that they could ever even be challenged in the first place. Obviously, Palworld is not playable on Nintendo platforms, right? But this just means that over time, something I came to predict is going to come to pass eventually, which is that Pokemon will reign supreme on Nintendo because, well, that's where it is. But Palworld will slowly but surely become a far more accessible and more varied and dynamic version of Pokemon that is going to grow over time because it's available everywhere that Pokemon isn't. And newer players, kids especially, will likely gravitate towards playing Palworld because, for one, it actually has co-op that works in a way that Nintendo really hasn't been able to figure out for years despite their enormous amounts of resources. There's really no excuse. Seriously, why doesn't Pokemon have a robust online mode that can run perfectly optimal like the likes of, say, Destiny 2 or World of Warcraft? Is just simply because Nintendo doesn't want to invest into doing that. Who are we kidding? Yet here's Palworld, $30 American, and it not only has co-op multiplayer that is easy to play with friends, but it's even cross-play too. So Steam users can play with PlayStation or Xbox users too. It's such a massive missed opportunity for Nintendo, but it's all because they refuse to do anything about it. So Nintendo can get mad all they want about players walking away to Palworld, but I mean, come on, man, you had everything. You had the world in your hand. I'm not saying that, Pokemon's going to fail. Of course not. It won't. It's Pokemon. But to suggest that Palworld is not obviously filling a Snorlax-sized hole that Nintendo has refused to occupy themselves, it can't be understated. We wanted Pokemon on all platforms. We wanted to capture the Pokemon, face the other trainers, run around a world together, collect the gym badges, and Nintendo just said routinely, no, we're not doing that. And they lurched like a corpse when it came to updating the basic fundamentals fundamental properties of what people expect from Nintendo these days. You're selling these games now at a premium, but the experience does not match the money that we're spending, Nintendo. I actually tried a month ago to go back to Violet so that I could finally beat it. I restarted the game. I chose the grass cat starter this time around, and I got maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 badges into the game before I just called it quits. It's just boring, man. It's just the same endless loop with nothing interesting happening. The combat's still so basic. The animations are like non-existent. The textures look fine, but not amazing. I mean, I even tried Violet on my Switch 2, which supposedly bumps the game with the 60 FPS and all that. Yeah, it does. But it still doesn't feel current gen to me at all. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a premium product that I paid $80 for. It feels like I'm playing a $10 mobile game or something at best. And the fact that these characters still don't have voice acting is beyond baffling to me. Like, tell me how with a straight face, like a clip like this is somehow in your Pokemon game that retails for full premium price. Please, watch this. Like, come on, there's no defense for something like that. It's awful, but this is what Nintendo fans are trying to defend over Palworld. You even have people like this on Twitter, as you can see here, who claim that Palworld is apparently losing their lawsuit to Nintendo, which is factually just incorrect. I mean, I told you that in the beginning. Nintendo has overwhelmingly lost the lawsuit to Palworld. There's practically nothing they can do now to stop it from going forward. This post even got community noted, which you can see there, which further details that none of Nintendo's patent lawsuits had anything to do with Palworld's creature designs in the first place. It had everything to do with, like I said, right, the ball mechanic and things like riding monsters, being able to summon them, I guess touchscreen controls too. I covered that in a video already, like in full, but like I'll be brief, but TLDR, right, Nintendo lost their lawsuit. None of these things were placed in Nintendo's favor, and they're gonna get cooked because none of those lawsuits worked in the end anyways. It's just misinformation for the sake of it. But look, alright, Palworld is not going to replace Pokemon, but it will scratch a different kind of itch that Nintendo is just rejecting. We wanted larger worlds, we wanted deeper systems, more experimentation. Nintendo was not willing to do any of that. I think what Nintendo needs to understand and learn from Palworld is stop asking why it's so popular, but instead try to understand what they can take away from this entire experience to further enforce and ensure that Pokemon continues to get better as well. What's also important here is that ultimately it's you guys, the players, who decide if something is successful or not, and not really the companies, and you should never forget that. Like I said for years on this channel, you guys have all the power. These companies can't do anything but be beholden to whatever you guys actually spend your money on. So no matter what the headlines are saying, you decide what succeeds, not them, and always remember that. But what I hope this story shows is that competition is actually good for these sorts of industries. Palworld is going to cause Pokemon to respond inevitably in ways they never thought they would have to, and that's a great thing. What's interesting is that Palworld didn't need to defeat Nintendo to matter in the first place. It just simply proved that there was room for another major player in this space. Not only is that healthy, but we're all going to benefit going forward because of that. But in the end, what Palworld should really tell the games industry is they achieved what they did, not with like a $200 million budget or some Hollywood actor in their roles or anything like that. They did what they did because they were just willing to experiment, right? What modern AAA publishers often don't realize is they are spending so much time minimizing risk that they are accidentally also minimizing the creativity side of it as well. Palworld is to Pokemon what Clair Obscur was to turn-based RPGs or Black Myth Wukong was for Souls-likes. These weird games that changed the formula the way that they did, they came out of nowhere, and look at them, they all sold millions. The fact that Palworld now has a TCG on the way, that's evident that they're here to stay. I think Palworld doesn't need to replace Pokemon. It didn't need to destroy Nintendo or need to become the biggest franchise in gaming to prove its point. All it had to do was show that players are willing to embrace these new ideas when developers give them something genuinely exciting to explore again. And really what we want isn't the games with the biggest budgets, but the games with, the biggest surprises. Because gaming has never moved forward by endlessly just repeating yesterday's successes. It moved forward when someone just takes a chance on tomorrow like Pocket Pair did here. And regardless of where Palworld ultimately ends up, Pocket Pair already proved that one great idea can force an entire industry to pay attention, and I think that's awesome. Nintendo couldn't stop Palworld even when they tried to, so maybe it's time to learn from them instead. But thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to. I'm happy to see this all happen the way that it did. If it leads to better games and products, we all win in the end. Well, except Nintendo. They lost $41 million in legal costs, but who's counting?